Okay. Hey guys, welcome to our one of our classes for the month of March. This is our gut health class with Lori Bory, and I'm super excited to introduce my friend Lori to you guys. So Lori is she's a young living diamond. She's been married to Ron for 34 years. Like, were you 5 when you got married? I think so. 34 years. She's confirmed boy mom of 6 boys, all homeschooled, and in between renovating 2 houses on an 80-acre farm, she also enjoys dancing and fermenting vegetables and quilting, and was voted the most likely to wear inappropriate pastels off season. So without further ado, I want to introduce you guys to Lori Bory, who is going to take over and teach our call on gut health for us.
Wow, thank you. All right, so here we are. Shall I start now or shall I wait a couple of minutes for the
Oh, get going, girl. We're ready
get
for you.
going? All right. I'm letting it know we're being recorded, and here we are. My husband asked me, "What's your opening line?" And I said, "I think my opening line is going to be something like, I've never regretted a decision more in my life than deciding to teach this class." He said, "You can't say that." I said, I'm gonna. And it's because I decided to dig in, and I thought, well, I've already read, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 thick books about gut health. But I decided I'm really going to give them something special. I'm going to dig in and I'm going to find some new information they've never heard before. And all I did was spend about 100 hours down all kinds of rabbit holes and convince myself that I know nothing. I know nothing about gut health. And that's because all of us actually know nothing. There was a man who has over 200 published, peer-reviewed articles, and he says that he knows nothing. And I thought, okay, so if there's an iceberg out there and he has a cheese slicer and he's slicing off a little hunk of the iceberg and that's how much he knows, I'm taking a pen and I'm scratching into it. And the more you know, the more you can start getting all confused and everything else in it. But I have spent the last 10 hours boiling it down and making it simple. So there's the good news. At least I hope it is. So I've got all of my notes here. However, comma, you all have signed up for the college course. So get out your pens and your papers, because I don't want this to be just another, your gut is really important and it's really healthy, and here are the things that you take to support your gut health kind of a class. I really want you to understand some of what's actually going on in your body because it is so, so helpful. And yes, we're learning every single day. And as soon as I tell you something that I think I know for sure, I know this part, guess what? Tomorrow, you might watch this recording and say, well, some new research was just done and it turns out, Lori, that that's wrong. And I will probably say, yes, you're right. That's how it goes. It's sort of like when a computer comes out, as soon as it comes out, it is out of date. That's what gut health is. But I think that we can make it simple. And here's the really good news. Although we're going to dig into some weeds to help you understand why we want to do some of the things, the basic things that we should do probably are going to remind you of the kinds of things that your grandmother would have said. And that's the good news. Because if we all were doing what we know to do, we wouldn't need a class like this. And so that's part of why we're going to dig in. All right, so I'm going to educate you why it matters, inspire you to do it, and then hopefully inspire you to learn more. And this will just be the very basic. This will be the beginning of your efforts into self-healing and into learning all of the things so that you can be around for your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, Lord willing. All disease begins in the gut. I think it was Hippocrates that said that. Have you ever heard that statement by somebody? It's so true. Dis-ease, exactly. No matter what it is, no matter what diagnosis somebody has, or even before you did a diagnosis, it all has to do with the gut. So it doesn't matter if somebody's, you're talking with a friend and they say, well, I've got IBS or IBD or IBSC or IBSC or Crohn's disease or colitis or diverticulitis, or they're just bloated, or they've got skin issues, or if they have rashes, or if somebody is dealing with mental issues like ADD, ADHD, autism, and all of these things. And I'm naming all of these diagnoses. And don't be scared. I'm not going to turn around and say, oh, here's the essential oil that you're going to use for that. I'm just saying that it doesn't matter if the issue is I'm bloated and I just don't feel well after I eat pizza, or if the issue is I've got schizophrenia, or you have somebody who has ulcerative colitis, or you have somebody, it does not matter what it is. Anything that you could name that's wrong with us has to do with the gut. And that's because here's how the body functions. Here's how the body works. The body is designed by God to heal itself, and not in a woo-woo weird way. But if you get cut, do you bleed out and die? No, because the body heals itself, right? Well, how does the body heal itself? The body takes in the nutrition that you give it and it breaks it down into usable pieces that it uses to do the work of the healing. And where do you get this nutrition? You get it through what you eat. And that's called digestion. So I've heard it often said, you are what you eat, but I don't think it's true. I think it's you are what you digest. And we are in a world that has been hammering us. We thought that, or at least I thought that chemical warfare, whatever, looked like people in, hazmat suits dropping stuff down on a poor, unsuspecting population of people, and then they all died. I don't think that's what it is. Whether it's intentional or not, we are all being attacked in every single day life as if we were at war through the chemicals that they put in our food, in our clothing, in our personal care products. I'm looking around to see stuff because it's all got chemicals in it. In your couches, in your bedding, in everything, in the air, the chemicals are going after us, and they affect your body's ability to what? Digest. So your body uses digestion, the food that you eat, and non-nutritive elements to heal itself. So if you've got bloating, or you're just unhappy or whatever, the body can use food and non-nutritive elements. Now, what does non-nutritive elements sound like? Plant materials that you can put on your skin, or you can ingest, like essential oils, though they don't have to have a nutrition value in order to do something for your body. So that's what your body does, and that's how your body functions. And it is the chemicals that mess that up. Not only endocrine system disrupting chemicals, but it can mess up the microbiome. So we're going to talk about that. All right, let's see. You are what you digest. Yeah, I'm making sure I've got it all right over here. Here's the piece I wanted to make sure that I said. If we mess up digestion, then your body takes what it needs from places like your bones in order to do the work that it needs to do. And then we end up down the line with osteopenia or osteoporosis, and everybody wonders what happens. Well, again, it's back to the gut. It's like when your body is trying to heal itself, it's as if you're asking your body to make bricks without straw. You're not giving it the pieces, the itty bitty pieces that it needs in order to do things. Okay, so when it comes to the gut, people refer to the gut, but there's a lot of different kinds. There's a lot of different parts to the gut. Some people refer to the gut and they mean the large intestine. Other people mean the stomach. Some people mean the small intestine. So let's go through the design of the body for digestion, and then the contents of the gut, because that's where we get into the weeds on this. All right, so the structure of digestion is that it starts in your mouth, and that starts with the enzymes that in your mouth. And your grandmother probably told you to chew your food however many times, what, 200 times or something, like chew your food, chew your food, chew your food. It matters because that's where the digestion happens. Digestion, as in breaking the pieces down to make them bioavailable to your body. And so there's enzymes in your saliva. And guess what? There's a microbiome to your mouth. There's a microbiome to your skin. I'm just going to throw this out there lest I forget to say it later. But if you're having skin issues like on your face, or your teenagers and is having some skin issues, one of the best things you can do is to take some probiotic and stick it on their face. You just can never tell what's going to happen when you start affecting your microbiome that way. Okay, so then it goes down the esophagus and into the stomach. Now, I want to mention here that the esophagus has this little sphincter. It's got a name, and it's like the lower esophageal sphincter or something. This sphincter that opens and closes, and it lets the food down into your stomach, but it keeps the stomach acid from going up, or at least it's supposed to. And the reason I want to mention that is because we're going to talk later about what happens when you get indigestion and you start burping up stuff, and then that burns and that doesn't feel good. And our response to that in the US and in Western cultures, just like our response to just about everything that is wrong with us, has been 100% wrong. And it's causing a vicious cycle. So anyway, so you've got the esophagus, it goes into your stomach. And your stomach has those, it has the hydrochloric acid in it that is supposed to be really ramped up and really strong. And that's where we start breaking down the protein, right? Then after the stomach, it goes into the small intestine. And that's the part where you've heard about the gut lining. People are usually referring to the small intestine. And the small intestine is supposed to look like a shag carpet. It's got villi in it, okay? And then on the tips of the villi is microvilli, itty bitty, it's sort of like brushes. And that's going to matter too later on. So put a pin in that one. After we get to that, then it goes into the colon. And the colon is where the microbiome is supposed to live. That's all. You've probably heard about this now. Now, when I started studying gut health 25 years ago, nobody had ever heard about the microbiome. Now, this is mainstream. Now, even the doctors are talking about, and I mean, MDs are even talking about the microbiome and how that's an important thing to do, or an important thing to keep healthy. But a long time ago, they didn't think that that was the case. So that's where your body absorbs the water and the electrolytes and then gets rid of the waste. And this is a way oversimplification. So now let's talk about some of the things that can go wrong, because then we'll talk about what we can do to fix some of these things. Stomach acid. You want that stomach acid ramped up. But when it comes up, we often think to ourselves things like, have you ever heard of this? Oh, I have too much stomach acid, right? So tell me in the comments what we do when we think we have too much stomach acid and it feels uncomfortable. What do we do? Yeah, we do digest. But most people do Tums, right? They take an antacid because they think the problem is the body. If you learn nothing else from today, learn this. The body is not the problem. The body is smart. Your body was created perfectly by God to do exactly the right things. Everything your body does is for your benefit. It is conspiring for your benefit. But here's what happens. We take antacid, right? Well, guess what? That sphincter is designed to open and close based upon, are you sitting down? the amount of stomach acid you have. So if the stomach acid is high enough, it closes and it locks it off. If, however, the stomach acid is too low, it doesn't close. And that's when we start getting the backup. And our response is to lower the stomach acid. What happens when I know, right? What happens when you lower stomach acid? You don't digest. Friends, if you don't digest things, then it putrefies in the system. And that has a cascade effect downstream. It affects your microbiome. It feeds bad bacteria. It does actual physical damage to your gut. Yes, Western medicine is so backwards on this. Okay, so that's just one example, and that's why I wanted to bring that up. So you do want that up. But here's now you ask yourself, why does the body lower the stomach acid? The body lowers the stomach acid if you have a mucosal lining problem. If the lining of your stomach is not thick enough, the body says, we better lower the H hydrochloric acid because if we don't, we're going to burn a hole right through that stomach. See, so if you keep pulling that thread, it comes down to we need to help that lining. Okay. So what kinds of things can go wrong? Tell me what kinds of things can go wrong in the gut. Like what causes gut problems? I'll give you one. Chemicals. What else causes gut problems? And while you're doing that, I'm going to tell you one of the things I forgot to talk about with the colon. Other things that the colon does. So now we're into it's absorbing water. This is your lower intestine. It's absorbing water, it's absorbing electrolytes. It's also making neurotransmitters, and we will talk more about that later. So it's making serotonin. 90% of the serotonin is made in the gut. Dopamine, GABA, it's making vitamins. So if you don't have proper functioning gut, it's not going to make B12, and that's going to affect your ability to absorb later. And I also wanted to make sure that I said this is why older women usually need more gut support. It's because and they need more methylated vitamins because the gut isn't doing as much of its job. Okay, so tell me, yes, parasites. Thank you for saying that. Sugar. Yes, everything we do is counterproductive. There's that lack of minerals. Yes, absolutely. That's part of it. Antibiotics goes wrong with the gut. Glyphosate explodes the lining of gut bugs or of bugs. It explodes their gut lining. So what do you think it's doing to our lining? Also, it's an antibiotic. Wheat, modern wheat is bad. The chromosomes are in it are bad, but also because it doesn't ferment, and we'll go into that too. Chlorinated tap water is bad. What else can happen? Processed foods. Methylation is kind of a sliding scale in answer to your question, Jody. And so, yes, but some people require even more. Toxins produced by bacteria. Now, Lori, how does that happen? All right. So that's the structure of the gut. Let's go into the contents of the gut, and then we're going to drill down on some of those things, and we'll bring it all together and make it make sense. So enzymes, everything in your body, every process in your body that happens requires an enzyme to happen. Everything from thinking to blinking to digesting. There's two different kinds of enzymes. There's your metabolic enzymes and your digestive enzymes. The metabolic enzymes are doing the work like in the mitochondria and things like that. The digestive enzymes are the ones that are breaking things down. And you've heard of these. So if you're breaking down fats, those are lipids. So you need lipase, Lipase. So if you hear an ACE at the end of it, that's an enzyme. Amylase breaks down the carbohydrates. Protease, what does that one break down? Protein, right? So those digestive enzymes. Now, if your body is deficient in digestive enzymes, or if you're not consuming your digestive enzymes, for example, milk, if you're eating pastured milk, the enzyme to digest the milk is in the milk. Lactase is in the milk, but when they pasteurize it, they destroy that, and therefore your body is being asked to digest the lactose, and it doesn't have any lactase to do it. And then we all say, well, I'm lactose intolerant, and we act like it came from nothing, but it didn't come from nothing. That's right. So if you don't have the digestive enzymes, then your body needs to make these digestive enzymes. Well, the dealio is you can put your body on overdrive where it is so busy making digestive enzymes that it doesn't have the ability to make the metabolic enzymes. And then you get in a situation, and that can lead to another thing we haven't even talked about, weight gain. Weight gain is often associated with the gut, not just in the microbiome, which we can talk about, but also in the lack of enzymes. All right, so that's enzymes. Also, we've got bad bacteria in the gut, which should not be a problem because the good bacteria should keep it under control. We've got good bacteria in the gut, and we've got yeast in the gut, and then, parasites and viruses, but that's another situation. Most people have heard about the bad bacteria and the good bacteria at this point. 25 years ago, they hadn't heard of it. So what happens when we take an antibiotic? Well, you take an antibiotic in order to, kill whatever bad bacteria it is that they say is doing something bad, and it wipes out all of the bacteria. So imagine that the bacteria is like a forest, right? When you take an antibiotic, it's like lighting a match, and it just wipes everything out. And it for sure wipes out the good bacteria. Sometimes it doesn't even get all of the bad bacteria. And then, especially if we're taking more rounds of antibiotics, we end up with C. diff. People, well, how did I get C. diff? Well, C. diff was already in there. But now it's been able to proliferate because the good bacteria was wiped out. And friends, when it comes to gut bacteria, there are up to a couple of thousand different strains of bacteria. I'm sorry, species of bacteria. There's species and strains. I'll go into that later, maybe. When we start, some of them don't even exist in the human population anymore in modern world. One of them is Lactobacillus rhodori. Now, rhodori used to be common in the US in the 60s. Who was alive in the 60s? Do you remember when overweight was not a thing? Do you remember in the 70s when everybody was skinny? Well, this bacteria was common. And it was identified in a German breastfeeding mom, I think, by whoever identified this bacteria. One round of antibiotics wipes it out in you and your children and your children's children. So if you or your mother or your grandmother have ever had one round of antibiotics, it's gone. It is missing in 100% of the US population and in 96% of the world. Yeah. This is how important the microbiome is and how delicate it is. So I have a rule about antibiotics in my house now, knowing what I know, that I will take them the day that you tell me I die tomorrow without it. That's when I'll take my antibiotics. Other than that, I will do anything possible to get around that. And that's not the only bacteria. B. infantis is another one that, have you noticed all of these babies now are having such digestive problem, they can't even digest their mother's milk? They're probably missing B. infantis. One of the number one things you can do is to even if you can't fully reestablish gut bacteria, is to reintroduce as much as possible. The reestablishing of the gut bacteria is really hard. They're finding the research on that is that it might live for a couple of weeks and then it goes away. It's a lot easier in babies. This is another reason. This is reason like 4,392 why you should do everything possible not to have a C-section, because then the baby doesn't get the microbiome going through the tract. There's just and now I'm rambling. I'm sorry, you guys. I get into it. I'm like, maybe they need to know this and this and this. So you've got the good bacteria and the bad bacteria, like E. coli. I'll tell you what else about I'll drop this one and then we'll move on. The bad bacteria used to just live in the colon, like it was the fecal material. But guess what? Now it is being discovered in all parts of our bodies. It's in our brains. They call it the fecalization of America. Yeah, right? And that's because bad bacteria drives out good. It's just like money. Bad money drives out good. Who's old enough to remember money that had silver in it? I am. As soon as they introduced money that didn't have silver in it, what happened to all of the good money? It went away. People hoarded it. Well, in the colon, you're supposed to have this good bacteria. Well, the bad bacteria proliferates, and the good bacteria can then say, you know what we're going to do? Peace out. We're out of here. We're going to go live somewhere else. And it starts to migrate into the small intestine where it's not supposed to live. And then we go to the doctor and we get diagnosed with what? SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, because that's a bunch of fine bacteria, but it's not supposed to be in the small intestine. It's supposed to be down there in the colon. It's being crowded out. That's right. And all of this is to convince you to do the right thing, because it's once you get this damage, it's difficult to manage. All right, let's talk about yeast. The other thing that can happen with overgrowth of the bad bacteria or with antibiotics is that you get a yeast overgrowth, because as the good bacteria die, the yeast begin to take over. And yeast are not benign, friends. Yeast turn into little boars, and they bore holes in the gut lining, and it explodes. And then the food that is supposed to be digested doesn't get digested. It escapes into the bloodstream. And all of a sudden, we say, oh, that person has an allergy, because it gets attacked as a foreign invader because it's not supposed to be in the bloodstream undigested. That's also what leads to a lot of autoimmune diseases. So do you see how absolutely everything is connected to the gut? So I mentioned before that people are trying to, reintroduce bacteria. Yes, you can do that. There's a thing called a fecal transplant. It's a thing. And you're not actually eating stuff, but I don't think they can sanitize it, but they clean it up and they put it in, dry it, put it in capsules and stuff, and you swallow that. But it's actually a thing. If somebody has really, really, really messed up, bacteria, then that's something that can happen. But really, for most of us, what we want to do is feed the good bacteria and let it do its thing. We have to trust the body, that the body is always doing the right thing for us. All right, I want to describe another thing that can go wrong. So these microvilli that live in the small intestines that I've talked about, on those microvilli live the enzymes that digest things. So enzymes is what it takes to digest things and break them apart, not the microbiome. It's not the bacteria, although the bacteria can harvest more calories. Like there are obesogenic bacteria, and they've done studies where people who are naturally slim have Slimming bacteria and people who are naturally heavy have a different kind of bacteria that harvest more calories out of the food. Have you ever wondered why you can eat the same thing as your skinny friend? I've wondered this. Why can I eat the same thing as my skinny friend and she's slim and I'm putting on weight like nobody's business? That's another reason. But anyway, okay, so in the small intestine, you've got these villi and you've got the microvilli that are living here, okay? When damage happens through any of those things you guys mentioned, we can have parasites damage, we can have the antibiotics, we can have chlorinated tap water, processed foods, antacids, toxins that are released from the bad bacteria, glyphosate, any damage to these microvilli, and you start not digesting. So, do you know what lives at the very top? What's usually the first one to go? Lactase. And so again, if it's not in the milk that you're drinking, because you're not drinking raw milk, you're drinking pasteurized milk, and it's not here because these have been eaten down or there's been damage to it, then it doesn't digest. Okay, so it's supposed to look like this, but what happens is we get some damage, and then the food doesn't get digested. It doesn't get broken down, broken apart. And then the next thing that happens is it putrefies. And when it putrefies, it feeds the bad bacteria. Are you starting to see what's going to happen? And then those bad bacteria start eating down more of the lining and damaging more of the lining, and you get a vicious cycle. So instead of looking like this, it starts looking like this. Okay. And that's why enzyme supplementation is a really important thing for us to do. And in some cases, a special diet is necessary. I mentioned wheat as something that isn't being broken down in our modern day wheat. Gary Young did a study, and it was a 4-year study. And when you had non-hybrid seeds of einkorn wheat, which is what Young Living sells, and there were no sprays, no chemical sprays, and it was harvested by horses, and it was left for 7 to 8 days in the field, people had no allergic response. And that's because it's being broken down. So remember how we talked about chewing? You need to chew to start the digestion process. Well, ancient cultures figured out long ago that pre-digesting the food was a good thing. That's why they would cure meat. That's why they would soak grains. And the old ancient einkorn wheat is really, really tall. And the way it would be harvested, some of us remember seeing this in the fields. It would be harvested, it's this tall, and then they would stack it in these stalks, right? And they would let it sit there for 7 to 8 days. Well, what happens when you do that is that the dew comes along and it absorbs it and it cracks those little pods, and it pre-digests the food for us. Yes, Little House on the Prairie. Thank you. That's how it was done. But we came along with our modern day wheat and we said, no, we can do better, faster, and all of that nonsense. So, so don't do that. All right. So we've talked about SIBO, we've talked about yeast, we've talked about the vicious cycle, enzymes and the bad bacteria and the good bacteria. And let's talk about what we can do to help our own guts. Have you ever heard the phrase that one size fits nobody? Well, when it comes to the gut, that can be true, because what's good for just the normal everyday gut is not good if you've got a small intestinal overgrowth and that sort of thing. But maybe some of these things will apply to you, and I encourage you to determine what will apply to you. Okay, the first thing that comes to mind for what we can do for all of this stuff is actually not a supplement. The first thing that comes to mind is it matters when you eat and it matters when you wake up in the morning, and it matters what kind of sunlight you get in your eyes. This is a whole class that people could teach, like, welcome to the 40-hour class on circadian rhythm and what that does for your digestion. But think about it this way. God put the sun in the sky to put the light in your eyes to tell your body what to do when. And the sun is not the same at sunrise, at midday, at evening. The rays are different. And your body takes those rays and what's the word I'm looking for? It takes those rays and it interprets them and tells your body what to do. So if you are eating at dark at 10 o'clock at night, right before you go to bed, your body is confused. Your body is responsible for a lot of stuff. And it's going, wait a minute, we thought we were going to sleep, and you're telling us we're supposed to digest? And it doesn't work. And so what happens, what did we learn happens if you don't digest it, then it putrefies. Yeah, stop the late night snacking. Exactly. Here's another one. If you're going to eat, sit down and eat. Eat enough that your gallbladder is able to say, hey, we're going to expel our contents because it's necessary for the digestion. And don't just eat all the time, snacking all day, because then your gallbladder never gets rid of its stuff. And then it forms gallstones. And we all think it happened in a vacuum, and we don't know why it caused it. Well, it was because of our habits, right? Here's another one. Eat first thing in the morning. But before you eat, go outside. Get up with the sun and go outside and look at the sunrise, because that tells your body, oh, it has the correct wavelength that tells your body it is time to wake up, and it's time to eat, and it's time to digest. And your body kicks in and it knows what to do. You can solve a lot of issues if you will just fix the sunrise, sunset, blue light thing. Don't be on your phone. Turn your phone off, and especially until you have eaten. And after you eat, you shouldn't eat more than 3 hours. You should eat no closer than 3 hours before you go to sleep. Okay. All right. That's the first thing. The second thing, I'm checking these off as I go, is after you eat, go for a walk. It again signals your body it's time to digest. And if you can't go for a walk because you're sitting with your special somebody, or you're on a date and you're there at the table, then take your feet and do like this under the table. Nobody will notice, because there's something about the calf muscles constricting and releasing that tell your body time to digest. Yeah, it's a neat trick. And I've actually done it and found myself losing weight. Now, how about that? Like, Lori, what's your number one weight loss tip? Do like this on your feet. That's your eating. Okay. Let's see. If you are what you digest, not you are what you eat, trust Gary Young and put the digest on. Just put the digest on. You can put it on your stomach. You can put it in your water. Nobody's going to make digest cookies, but just use it. You know, you may not love the flavor. Don't stick it in your diffuser, but use it. Just keep it with you at all times and use it. You know what I didn't talk to you about is the vagus nerve. The gut-brain connection. Okay, y'all have now heard about the gut-brain connection. Like, it's a thing. The vagus nerve is the main nerve that goes from your abdomen up into your brain. And it's a two-way communication street. And so your brain tells your gut what to do, and your gut gives the chemicals to your brain to know how to respond and how to react. So if there's any sadness, blues, and I don't want to, anxiousness, sadness, extreme sadness, inability to focus, anything like that, the vagus nerve is definitely involved because all of that serotonin is made in the gut. And by gut, I mean the large intestine. And so if your large intestine doesn't have the right bacteria, it's making the wrong chemicals and sending it to your brain. And I'll give you another one having to do with that. Have your kids ever been like they're high, but without, I mean, your little ones that don't have access to anything. And you're looking at them and you're thinking, you're high. Like you can't even, what could be going on with them? Well, one of the things that could be going on with them is those bacteria are making the wrong kinds of chemicals, or the yeast is fermenting too much and it's sending those chemicals to the brain, much as if they were drunk. It's actually a thing, too much fermentation in the gut. Okay. Digest helps balance out fermentation in the gut. So there you go. And regarding the vagus nerve, use your peace and calming. It calms things. Use your valor. It makes you happy. Use your bergamot. Use your Roman chamomile, your lavender, your peppermint. Can I make this really simple for you? Use any essential oil you have. I hear it all the time. But Lori, I don't know what to do with my essential oils. I have so many essential oils. Like, what do you mean? What do you do with it? Pop the top and put it in your diffuser. That's what you do with it. Well, which one? All of them. I don't care. I had a situation, I don't know, after the car accident when I was really sad, guys. I was really sad. I was so sad, I didn't care that I was sad. I was just going to stick it out in bed for the rest of my life sad. Um, and finally it hit me, hey, Lori, you're the diamond in the room. Maybe you should use some oils. And so I gathered all the oils I didn't know what to do with. And I stuck them by the diffuser and I got really heavy handed. And because I'm thinking this is a vagus nerve thing. And so I like 30 drops in that diffuser and I turned it on 3 days. 3 days and I felt better. It's the same thing with your digestive oils. Yes, Gary Young is a genius and came up with just the best combination of oils ever and put it in Digest. And anything anybody else is trying to create is nothing but a cheap knockoff. Having said that, oils are all good. All oils work. Some oils work for some things better than other oils for some people. Just put the oil on. If you don't have the oil you need or you want, use the oil you have. And yes, Digest and thank you, Stacy. Shut up and oil. Digest and capsules too. Absolutely. Okay. Probiotics. Let's talk about probiotic. Yes, I am for probiotics, unless somebody has SIBO. If you got small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, like just I would not feel comfortable taking it because you're just adding more. And yeah, so I would say no to that. But having said that, you know what is so sweet about Life 9? Life 9 is 9 different kinds of probiotics. What's so sweet about it, two things. There's 17 billion in each capsule. You can, the ones that are on the market that cost a lot of money are 20 billion. The ones that cost as much as Young Living's cost are normally 5 to 10 billion. So it gives you more. The second thing I love about it is the enteric coating, the time released, they call it. It's time released to prevent it, in theory, from emptying out in the small intestine. And it waits until it's in the large intestine, which is where it's supposed to empty out. The only reason I said that about SIBO is because we know that what's good in the large intestine can migrate into the small intestine. But I like Life 9 as probiotics go. But really, make yourself some sauerkraut or some kimchi or something fermented, because Life 9 has 9 in there and it's consistent. I have heard so many stories of people who couldn't go. They start in with the Life 9, they start adding in some of that good bacteria, suddenly they can go. And it's amazing. But properly made lacto-fermented sauerkraut has 1,000 strains of bacteria in it. The ones that proliferate at room temperature. Okay. People ask me about yogurt. I'm not crazy about yogurt. And the reason is commercial yogurt. Now, if you're going to make your own yogurt and you're going to ferment it for 24 to 36 hours, I'm in. And it will be the best thing ever and you'll love it. But commercial grade yogurt is fermented usually for 4 hours, just long enough to get it to set up, not long enough for it to actually do something for you. So I would choose Life 9 over a yogurt. So there's your probiotics. Let's see. Also in the probiotics, you get enzymes. For example, in vitamin C, enzymes and more bioavailable vitamins. So vitamin C, for example, in sauerkraut, has 10 times more bioavailable vitamin C. And that's why James Cook, when he went to Australia, took it with him so that the sailors wouldn't get scurvy because they had sauerkraut. So that's really important. Okay, I'm marking that one off the list. Enzymes. Gary taught to not get held up on just one kind of enzyme, and he's right. Most of us are enzyme deficient, and one of the best things you can do is take some of the essential zymes, allerzymes, detoxzymes, essential zymes 4. There are protocols that are in the desk references that you can look at and it's fine. But really one of the best things you can do is put a whole bunch of them in your hand, pop them in your mouth, tuck your chin if they float, and swallow. It might just change your life. You do that every day for 60 days, it might just change your life. Okay, so enzymes take a lot. All right. Build your gut lining. This is one that I don't think I've heard in any of the Young Living gut classes. Did you know that clove essential oil, because of the eugenol in there, stimulates the Clostridia? I don't know how to say it, but it stimulates it, and that stimulates the mucus lining of your gut, which is what you want. Isn't that fantastic? Now you can combine that with green tea because green tea has catechins in it. So what I do is take green tea and then I add, I would say 1 to 2 drops of clove vitality essential oils just because it's good for you. I might add 5 or 6 or 7 drops, but I'm kind of a junkie. And then I take liquid stevia and I sprinkle it on the top of it because it emulsifies it and it makes it spread throughout. And then give it a shake because those are kind of heavy molecules and they tend to land on the bottom. And if they land on the bottom, that last chug is like, woo! And I put some thieves in there or some cinnamon, because that's also really good for your gut. And cinnamon is bad for fungus and it's good for your gut. And that stimulates your gut mucus lining to grow. So I'm not saying that it's healing any disease. I'm saying if you've got a fine gut lining and you just want to make it better, then clove green tea is one of my favorite things. And I sip on it all day to just keep telling my body, go ahead and make that mucus lining. It's good. It's all good. I will warn you that at the end, like I said, it can be a real hit, but it tastes kind of like gingerbread tea. So it's my gingerbread tea. And that's one of the best things you can do. Let's see, what else do I have here? Let's talk later. After we're done with the class, we'll do a short Q&A and we'll talk about yeast and SIBO. Ningxia Red has L-glutamine in it. You know everything. Ningxia Red is good for it just makes you feel amazing. And L-glutamine also is known to help the microbiome and to help the gut lining. So Ningxia Red, Ningxia Red, Ningxia Red. Mighty Pro is another fabulous thing, especially for kids. I think it tastes delicious, and so I take that too. we should probably, somebody mentioned parasites. Oh, yes, parasites is a thing, but that's a whole other topic. Digest and cleanse. You know, Young Living is really nice. They name things what they are, like digest and digest and cleanse. Digest and cleanse, if you're kind of backed up, is just an amazing thing to take. And let's see, Life 9. The other thing that you can do is go onto the website and just type in the search bar gut. And all of a sudden, things will start popping up, like the Life Essentials 2 kits, which has the daily prebiotic fiber in it. So, prebiotic, what does that mean? The prebiotic stuff is what feeds the probiotics. So, probiotics have to eat, they eat fiber, they eat fat, they eat different kinds of things, but the prebiotics feed that. So, Ningxia Red is a prebiotic. But also that daily prebiotic fiber. People have had remarkable stories about their gut health. And then I want to talk to you about the chemicals in your life. The Thieves Cleaner, you guys, it does everything. Everything. There are stories about in the camper that Gary used to travel around in with his family. Normally in the tank of the camper, they put all kinds of nasty chemicals because that's, where they're storing all of the bad stuff. And Gary said he wasn't going to do it. So he put a bottle of Thieves Cleaner in there instead of that nasty stuff. That Thieves Cleaner is good for you. The Thieves mouthwash is good for you. Did you know that normal mouthwash can destroy your microbiome? But the Thieves mouthwash has the silver in it, and it's all just really good for you. Yes, thank you for putting that there for the Life 9. All right. Do what your grandmother said. Use your essential oils. Get off your processed foods. Get up and look at the sunlight, and use your targeted nutrition with your enzymes and your Life 9. And if that doesn't fix it, then you have a lot of research to do. So thank you for coming to my class. Let's go ahead and should we do Q&A now, or should we pause the recording and do some Q&A?
Yeah, we can go ahead and pause the recording.
Okay.